to ask the First Minister whether he will provide an update on the Scottish Government's plans for highly protected marine areas following the end of its public consultation.
First Minister.
Our initial consultation on highly protected marine areas closed on Monday. It's only right, of course, that we do take some time to carefully consider all the responses, and there has been a substantial number of responses before we set out our next steps, as I say, especially given the strength of views that we all know have been expressed on this issue. Our seas, of course, must remain a source of prosperity for the nation, especially in those remote coastal and island communities. It's vital that those communities do help shape the creation of these areas, which is why we chose to consult very early on in this process. My officials have held over 40 meetings relating to the process, and my colleague Mary McAllen will continue to engage directly with coastal and island communities before we decide our next steps together. To be clear, no sites have been selected. This will not begin until we've considered the consultation feedback and until that engagement is complete. And we are determined to ensure that as many voices as possible are heard in this process.
Donald Cameron.
Earlier this week, the First Minister said that HPMAs should not be imposed on communities that don't want them. First Minister, not one community in the Highlands and Islands wants these, not one. We all acknowledge the need to protect our marine environment, but these proposals will devastate coastal communities and threaten their very way of life, particularly the fishing sector. It's no wonder this policy has been compared to the clearances people cleared off the land and cleared off the sea. Given the anger this has caused, given the widespread opposition to these plans, including from many in his own party, and given he wants to be First Minister for the whole country, will he now scrap these plans once and for all and start again?
First Minister.
Well, the point is that there are no plans yet. There is a consultation. We do not have set sites. We do not have set criteria yet. So what we want to do is, at a very early stage, inception stage, in fact, work with coastal communities, island communities, our fishing communities, because ultimately I do believe there is agreement on the outcome. The outcome that we all want is a sustainable marine environment. Yeah. What we want, of course, is our fishing industry and our seas to be sustainable for the future. We want that industry to continue, but we can only do that, of course, if the marine environment is sustainable. So I do believe there's an agreement there. And of course, our fishing communities, our island communities, our coastal communities have often been at the forefront of that effort around sustainability. So we want to work with them. We want to engage with them. All that being said, I will reiterate what I said on Tuesday, that this government will not steamroll, will not impose upon any community a policy that they are vehemently opposed to. So my colleague Mary McAllen will, of course, engage with those island communities, with those coastal communities, and we will analyse those responses very carefully. But for all of those who have expressed their opposition to highly protected marine areas, let me say that we are willing to engage, we are willing to listen, and let's hope we get to the agreed outcomes together.
Supplementary, Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Does the First Minister agree that the no-take zone in Umlash Bay has had no adverse impact whatsoever, and indeed has shown that conservation can help to revitalise our fishing sector, and that identifying potentially highly protected marine area sites would allow more effective direct engagement with concerned fishers and communities?
First Minister.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, far from having any adverse impact, it's shown us the benefit for both the marine environment and the people who rely on it. And I go back to that point. I think a very good example in relation to Umlash Bay, where it was the community that wanted that no-take zone. So this goes to the central point here, that we will work with communities, hopefully, to get to the outcomes that we all agree on, which is a sustainable marine environment. And based on studies that were coordinated by the community group at Umlash Bay, it's been noted that since protection, commercially important species such as the king scallop, such as the European lobster, they've increased in size, they've increased in age, they've increased in density. So the 2008 designation of the Umlash Bay no-take zone off the coast of Arran, as I say, was a result of campaigning by the local community. And I think that is a good model for us to take forward our work around highly protected marine areas.
Supplementary, Liam McArthur.
Officer. Earlier this week, Orkney Islands Council joined counterparts in Shetland and the Western Isles in voicing the strongest possible opposition to the government's plans for highly protected marine areas, given the potential impact on island communities. On the same day, the First Minister announced welcome, if long overdue, U-turns on his deposit return scheme and alcohol advertising sanctions. Can I therefore urge him not to spend months defending the indefensible and confirm, in light of the significant and growing opposition in coastal and island communities, that his government will now rethink its plans to arbitrarily designate 10% of Scottish waters as HPMAs by 2026?
First Minister.
Liam McArthur will be well aware that when I was Transport and Islands Minister, I introduced and brought forward island proofing. It's something I believe in to my very core. And therefore, we will not impose upon any community, island or otherwise, a policy that they vehemently oppose. Let's analyse the consultation responses. Let's agree on the outcomes. I think there is generally broad agreement on the outcome, that we want to have a marine environment that is sustainable. We want to have a fishing sector that is sustainable in the long term. And, of course, protecting our biodiversity helps us with that outcome. So we will continue to engage. I will continue to engage personally. Marie McCallan will also engage personally. She will, no doubt, travel right across the country, including to Orkney and Shetland, to meet with those who have expressed concerns. And together, I hope we can get to a place where we all agree on the outcome and then, of course, move forward to protect our marine environment to make it more sustainable for the future.
Question